Om Shri Guru Pyo Namaha. Who was speaking? Okay. So yesterday we discussed about the 6 Darshanas, the 6 schools of philosophy in India. The Mimamsa, Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Sankhya, Vedanta, and Yoga. 6 Darshanas, Shad Darshanas. Now, these are all different ways of trying to find the truth. 6, and then out of the 6, there are many other small sub-versions. But they're called Darshanas because the ultimate aim is to be face to face with the truth. Call it Bhagwan, God, Brahman, what Atman, any name is applicable, depending on how you look at it. Out of this, the last one is the Yoga Darshana. Last. The Sankhya comes third from top. It's also a very old philosophy, a school of thought which was discovered and taught by the sage Kapila. We discussed that yesterday. So the Yoga Darshana is the last one, the 6th. So it has derived a lot of substance from all the other teachings, especially Sankhya. Now, the most important text which all people interested in the practice, theory and practice of meditation, which is called yoga, follow is the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. The Yoga Sutras of Patanjali are the standard textbook on the practice of meditation or the yoga of meditation. We also discussed the yoga of meditation in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 6. But Yoga Sutras of Patanjali are more elaborate and they go only into the yoga system of thought. So it's a good idea to know what Patanjali says about yoga. The founder of the yoga school of thought, what does he say about yoga? How does it begin? And so on. That's what I wanted to tell you because you're all Kriya Yogis, I think, most of you. So you should also know what it is. Now, Patanjali has divided his teachings in the Yoga Sutras in 4 chapters. The first chapter is called the Samadhi Pada. The second chapter is called the Sadhana Pada. And the third chapter is called the Vibhuti Pada. And the fourth chapter is called Kaivalya Pada. We look at this one by one. Now, you must also understand that sutra is what you call an aphorism. Many things tightly edited and made into a small sentence, a sutra. You can't edit it anymore. But a teacher or an interpreter or a commentator is able to open it up and explain. This is how it works. So, they are Yoga Sutras, aphorisms. Okay. So, Patanjali starts the Yoga Sutra, of course the first chapter, which is Samadhi Pada, by saying first, Atha Yoga Anushasanam, which means here begins the study of yoga. Plain. No need of any commentary on that. There are many commentators on Patanjali, the most famous being Vyasa on the Yoga Sutras. It need not be that Vyasa who codified the Vedas, it could be any Vyasa, because a Vyasa simply means a compiler, one who compiles. That is Veda Vyasa because he compiled the 4 sections of the Vedas. So there are many Vyasa, this is one Vyasa. So Patanjali starts by saying, Atha Yoga Anushasanam, here begins the practice of yoga. And the next sentence is a definition of yoga. And he says, Yogas Chitta Vritti Nirodha. That's how he begins. Yogas Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Which means yoga is the Nirodha of the Vrittis, of the Chitta. Got it? Yeah. I'm just repeating the sloka in a different way. A commentator is required. So I'm going to comment on it. So, Yogas Chitta Vritti Nirodha, which means we have to describe, understand a few terms. One is yogas, you don't have to understand. It's trying to define. Yoga is Chitta Vritti Nirodha. What is Chitta? What is Vritti? And what is Nirodha? These are the 3 words we need to look at. Chitta here means the mind. Now, what is this mind? Commentary. What is this mind? If you look into Vyasa's commentary or any other, mind is composed of thought. You cannot think of a mind without thought. Even if I say, now I have no thoughts in my mind, it's the thought. Right? I am saying, well, now I am free of all. Who's saying? Me? And what is this me? It is thought. It is made up of thought. So, Chitta is the mind stuff where all the thoughts are moving. Now, the thoughts are not uniform. They're going up, coming down, different frequencies. When you get angry, there's another kind of thought moving in the Chitta, the Vritti. It's called Vritti. The movement of thought is called Vritti. And the Chitta is made up of these Vrittis, which is thought in different forms. Well, Patanjali was a great psychologist, studied very deep into this matter. And some Vrittis are nice, good Vrittis, but they are also Vrittis because they are movement of thought. Suppose I want to do good to somebody, there are good thoughts coming in my mind. They are also Vrittis, but they are good Vrittis. So we discussed yesterday Sattva, Rajas and Tamoguna. So these are Sattvic Vrittis. Then there are always active Vrittis which may not be so good but very active and intense. They are the Rajasic Vrittis. Then there are Vrittis which are in Tamoguna, which means inertia. Sleep is also considered a Vritti, and causing harm to others, bad thoughts, evil, all this is also Vritti. But that is the Tamasic Vritti. So, Patanjali is saying that the meaning of yoga or the state of meditation is when all these Vrittis, good or bad, have finally become quiet. Because when there is good, there is bad. There are 2 opposites. When there is good, there is bad, there is good. There are 2 opposites. When you hate, there is attachment. 2 opposites. Sometimes I love, then I hate something. So there are opposites coming. This movement of thought among the opposites, which means going down and coming up, patterns of waves and frequencies, are called the Vrittis. Patanjali says, when the mind, if possible, is free of all the forms of movement of thought, vrittis, Nirodha, cleared off, then that mind is no longer an ordinary mind. It's functioning from a level where there is no thought. When you say thought, opposing thoughts, and the movement of thought, when there is only silence and quietness. So the whole definition of yoga is how to make this mind, which is always still, it becomes still. That is the tarmac from which, the runway from which you take off to the higher levels of consciousness. But this is required for any devotional practice. Sometimes through intense devotion it comes naturally. But we are talking about a step-by-step approach to how to clean the mind and how to make it quiet and how to make it peaceful and with no opposing thoughts and no distractions whatsoever. That is the definition of yoga according to Patanjali. Yoga's Chitta, Vritti, Nirodha. Okay. Now this is in the first chapter, and the first chapter is called the Samadhi Pada. When you say Samadhi Pada, it means it describes the state of mind which happens when this movement of thought is put to rest. Then the mind, not being distracted and pulled in opposite directions, in its calm, quiet, tranquil state, enters into that which is beyond. So all the practice of yoga is meant for bringing this about. Now this is the first chapter, so he goes into definition of samadhi. It's called Samadhi Pada. Look, Patanjali doesn't simply jump into practice. First he is trying to say, why are we practicing this and what is the map? What is the Google map? Where are we going? Otherwise, somebody learns a few yogic practices from somewhere, then start practicing, and they doesn't know what's happening. Where are we going? Suddenly you say, oh, I don't want this, all my thoughts have ceased. Or I'm feeling I'm going mad. Many such things happen. I get emails regularly from somebody learned some technique from somebody, and then now I don't know what to do. My one hand is always moving. So I said, why don't you go and ask the guy who taught you? Oh, he is unreachable. But M is reachable, so you do all that, then you come and ask, what do I do? Anyway, so Samadhi Pada is the first chapter in the Yoga Sutras, which says where you are going. What is Samadhi? Okay. Samadhi is derived from the meaning of Samadhi is Sama. Sama meaning quiet, tranquil, equal. Dhi meaning thought. Samadhi. Dhiyo yo na prachodaya. May by intelligence be stimulated. Intelligence, thought, movement, understanding. Dhi is one word which describes everything. So samadhi means when our thoughts have become quiet. Sama. Which means again all the vrittis of the chitta have been removed and the mind is quiet. That is essential for any spiritual growth, whatever be the path one takes. This is quietness of mind. So then he describes different forms of samadhi. Samadhi is basically a trance state in which a person enters as the mind becomes quieter and quieter. Or you can also say as the mind becomes absorbed in the deity of his choice. You can also say that. So this is samadhi. But then Patanjali describes different forms of samadhi. The first Samadhi he calls as the Savikalpa Samadhi, which means the state, it's a trance because you are not aware of the outside world. It's a trance. So in this you enter into a quiet, still mind, quietness, and you are fully absorbed and blissful. You're enjoying it. Because the moment the mind gets still, the Atman begins to function, which is blissful consciousness. Atman is not the mind. We don't allow the Atman to express itself because we are always caught with the mind. So when the mind becomes quiet, calm, vrittis are removed, then the Atman's bliss begins to appear. Then what happens with the mind? The same mind which was still now going like this up and down is now absorbed in the bliss of the Atman. Atman is blissful itself, it doesn't have to enjoy, it's the mind, pure mind that is enjoying the Atman. Now, it enjoys for some time, everything is fine. As I said earlier, everything is hunky-dory. Then what happens? Then I come out. We cannot remain forever in that Samadhi, right? Some time, yes. After that, your workings of your karma, the seeds of your thought, they begin to slowly sprout. Because in this Savikalpa Samadhi, the kalpa, or the capacity to weave this world, ends only temporarily. And you're in the moment, then it is over. Your mind, all the thought seeds have sprouted again and you are back to. So you must be very blissful here. Then slowly it wears off and you come back to the world and you are the same. Then a little bit of difference will be there, of course, because you enjoyed something and you know there is something, but then you behave similar when you come out. Because why? The seeds of desire and longing have not gone. They're still there, but in Samadhi they were submerged. When you come back, they come back again. So, through constant practice, regular and constant practice, nairantarya abhyasena, regular practice, even the seeds are slowly removed. Then, the question of remaining blissful when you are meditating in Samadhi, and also when you wake up from the trance state outside, in the outside world, it is the same. The bliss continues. You do all your work, but there is inside that one playing, as we say, like a tampura. You know what a tampura is? It's a stringed instrument which is used for all classical music. Now you know how Indian classical music, it's not like, it's yeah, but whatever be the song, whatever be the swara, the tampura plays only one tune at the back. Dong, 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 dong. I don't know if you know that. Here a lot of people were playing music, so I don't know about Western music. But in Indian music, classical music, we have swaras which are 7 in number, actually 8. So it's like sa re ga ma pa da ni sa ni da pa ma ga ri sa down. So the lowest sa, then the highest sa. Sa re ga ma pa da ni sa ni da pa ma ga ri sa. This is the tone. Now, why did I say that? I forgot.
Atman is like that. Tambura.
So, got it. So, in that deep samadhi, when the seeds have been removed, the seeds of desire, the seeds of agitation, all removed by constantly settling down in that bliss of the Atman, then even when the trance condition is over, one is back to this world, the bliss of Brahman plays like a tampura inside. You might be functioning in the sa or ri or ga or va, pa, it goes on. So, at any moment, you can stop the agitation and get back there. When one has achieved that, it's called Nirvikalpa Samadhi, which means Samadhi without any kalpas, without any modifications. Till then, Savikalpa is also blissful, but for that you need to be in a trance, not unaware of the world, and enjoy. When it becomes your normal state, then even after you open your eyes, functioning in this world, the joy continues somewhere in the background like a tampura. You function, of course, and because it's there, you will function rightly. So in that case, when you reach that point, there is no question of closing your eyes or opening your eyes. Okay, let me illustrate you with a story. Not a story, there was a great king in a place called Videha in the north of India, whose name was Janaka. Janaka was a king, and in Sanskrit, a king is called a Raja. Raja means king. Sometimes out of affection, the parents call the boy, Raja, come here. Okay. So Raja means boy. Now Rani is the queen, Rani. So this Raja, this king, Janaka, was called a Raja Rishi. Now you know what a Rishi is. Rishi is a great spiritual being. Rishi. Why was he called Raja Rishi? Due to two reasons. One, he was a king and also a Rishi. Two, many people considered him a king of rishis. Because even though he was functioning as the king, his mind was in the Atman always. So he did the right thing. This is possible. Yeah? So there is another story connected to this. The great Vedavyasa, I hope you don't mind the stories, because it illustrates better. The great Vedavyasa who compiled the Vedas. The highest spiritual seat is called the Vyasapitha, the seat of Vyasa, because he is the chief of all these. He had a son called Sukadeva, only one boy. It is said that he was a mature soul even when he was born. And the first thing he said when he began to speak is, "What is all this drama going on?" His name was Sukadeva. He appears in the Bhagavatam and teaches the Bhagavad to somebody. Now this Sukadeva was told by his father, Vyasa, who was a great Rishi, that you still haven't attained, you have touched that, but you need to confirm that you have. So Sukadeva told his father, "You confirm it for me." He said, "No, go to Janaka, the king." Sukadeva said, "What for? First, I am your son, Vyasa, who has compiled the Vedas. Second, from childhood I am feeling that I am free, kind of. When the boys are young, very small, at 8 years, they give them a sacred thread and the Gayatri mantra. While they give them the Gayatri mantra, they give them a thread to be put on their shoulders this way. It's called the sacred thread. Then they're called Brahmins after that. When Sukadeva was given the sacred thread, he broke it and threw it off. He said, "I am neither a Brahmin, nor a Vaishya, nor a Sudra. I am a human being." So such a person. So reluctantly he goes to Janaka. He meets Janaka and he says to him, my father has sent me to you, I don't know why. He says I should learn from you and understand how the Brahman is. But I already know. So Janaka says, okay, first of all, I didn't tell you that I'm going to take you as my student. Did I? No. So I need you to pass a test and then I will take you as a student. Reluctantly, Sukadeva says, okay. It's a young boy. He gives him a small vessel, a little cup full of oil, okay, almost to the brim. He says, put it on your head and hold it. Go and see the city of Videha in detail. Come back and tell me all the details after you've finished looking. But there is one condition. Do not spill a drop of oil from the cup. He says, okay. So he goes and he sees the whole city of Videha and he comes back and he describes everything in detail. Janaka asked, did you spill any drop of oil? No, sir. I was seeing everything, but my mind was here. Janaka says, that is how I live here as a king. I do all my work, but my mind is in the Atman. I hear only the tampura inside. So he understood and went back. So this is one story. Now this Janaka, his guru, his teacher was the great Rishi Yajnavalkya. You will see him in all the many Upanishads, Brihadaranyaka and so on. Is considered a great Rishi, Yajnavalkya. Now, Yajnavalkya teaches him the yogas, Yoga Sutras and how to attain Samadhi. He's entering into Savikalpa Samadhi whenever he wants. This was before Sukadeva came. So one day, suddenly appears at his door another Rishi, a great teacher, whose name was Ashtavakra. Now the meaning of Ashtavakra is bent in 8 places. He's a cripple. This leg is bent here, his hand is bent here, everything, neck is bent. So 8 places is bent. Ashta means 8, Vakra means bent. But he is considered and respected as a great Rishi. So he hobbles into the court and say, Janaka welcomes him. Ashtavakra, the great sage, has come, made him sit, offer him water to drink and so on, and then settle down. Then he says, what do you want? What can I give you? Ashtavakra says, no, you don't have to give me anything. I want to ask you something. Are you free? Have you reached the Atman? If you reach the Atman, then you're free, the Brahman. Are you free? Freedom from all attachments, freedom from always in bliss with no attachment. He said, I think so. You think so. This cannot be. Either it is or it is not. It cannot be what you think. Okay? So what do you suggest that I do? He says, so why do you feel that you are free and you are established in the Atman? Just because I can go into Samadhi at any given moment and experience the bliss of the Atman because my mind is free of all vrittis, stilled. Yajnavalkya taught me how to do it. So he says, then you go into Samadhi, yes. And then now you are not in Samadhi, you are out of Samadhi. Yes. Do you feel free now? No. But I can any time go into Samadhi. So then you are not free. If you are free, you should be free now and then. You cannot be free at one point. Only free when I am going in doesn't mean anything. Because when you are going out, then you are not free. So when this freedom or the bliss that you are talking about lasts even when you are out in the outside world, like the Tampura, then I will agree that you are free, not before that. And he teaches him some things which today you may find in a text called Ashtavakra Gita. Either sometimes it's called Ashtavakra Samhita, sometimes it is called Ashtavakra Gitam, where he says that the ultimate freedom is neither going in nor coming out. It's there, once done, it is done forever, and there is nothing to do about it. This is why I think the reason why the great Ramana Maharishi never closed his eyes and meditated. You can't see a single picture. His eyes are open, which means no necessity to go in or come out. Always there. No dependence even on that. Well, to reach there first you have to close your eyes till you reach that point when everything is all the same all the time. So why did we come there? Yoga's Chitta, Vritti, Nirodha and Samadhi. So Nirvikalpa Samadhi, it's also called Nirbija Samadhi, Samadhi without seeds, seeds of desire, seeds of longing, nothing, all wiped out. That Samadhi is the state which the yogi is trying to attain. Samadhi. So then there's a lot of discussion on the mind, subconscious, unconscious. You should read. I can't go on to. The modern psychologist believes also in the subconscious mind. And the conscious mind we all believe in. Now the conscious mind, very often we think we do everything consciously. 60% of what we do comes from the subconscious mind, through the conscious mind. Okay? Then the psychologist will also agree that there is the unconscious mind, which is when it goes to sleep. In the Yoga Darshanas, they have brought one more mind in. One is the normal mind, conscious mind, then the subconscious mind, the unconscious, and the superconscious mind. The modern psychologists may not admit to the existence of a superconscious mind, but in yoga there is also a superconscious mind, then unconscious mind, then subconscious mind, and then the conscious mind. When the conscious mind is free of all vrittis, absolutely quiet and still, enjoying the bliss of the Atman, then it has touched the Atman which is actually in the superconscious mind. These are just terms used to describe stages or states. There is no such thing sitting there, but yeah. So, yoga according to Patanjali is Chitta Vritti Nirodha, stilling the distractions of the mind. Now, to still the distractions of the mind, the trick adopted by the yogis, it's not possible to suddenly stop all the thoughts together. So what do? Fix your attention on one. By constantly fixing your attention on one, the others fall off. And then finally, that is also broken. You can't do it otherwise. You cut one, it comes up here. You cut another, it comes up. Instead, put everything together in one place. And when that stream becomes continuous, then you are free of all distractions. There is one thought which is towards that. One day absorbed in the bliss, that is also forgotten. So this is the Samadhi Pada. The next chapter, of course, after having described where one is expected to go, where the yogi, he starts the Sadhana Pada. Sadhana Pada is, sadhana means practice. What should you do? to get there, which we have described. After Sadhana Pada comes one chapter called the Vibhuti Pada. And the last chapter of the Yoga Sutras is called the Kaivalya Pada, section on Kaivalya. Kaivalya, according to Yoga Darshana, means total freedom. It comes from Kevalam, meaning only one. When the yogi reaches Kaivalya, through stilling his mind and so on and so forth, we come to that. He reaches, his mind becomes absolutely like a mirror with no blemish. When this happens, the mind is no longer a mind, there is only the Purusha. Purusha means pure consciousness, blissful, pure consciousness. So, when that happens, the yogi is supposed to be free. The yogis also use the word nirvana for this. And in some texts, and the Vedantins called it moksha, which means freedom. Freedom from everything. Okay? So, Samadhi Pada, Sadhana Pada, Vibhuti Pada, and Kaivalya Pada. These are the 4 sections. Now, this Vibhuti Pada is a dangerous place, a dangerous section. Why dangerous? Because it talks about Vibhuti. Vibhuti means extraordinary capacities developed by the yogi because his mind becomes so concentrated, so peaceful, so one-pointed that anything he fixes attention on becomes a reality. It is in the Vibhuti Pada that there are described all these capacities which the yogi develops. He can become light. If you sit in a weighing machine and practice lagima, suddenly you will see the weighing machine things become low, the weight. Or you can become so heavy sitting. You can imagine in your mind and become. Or many such things. All the things people talk about, being able to go in the subtle body and coming, all this falls under the Vibhuti Pada. Because through Sadhana Pada, the yogi has attained absolute one-pointed concentration and attention and is able to therefore bring all the universal energies into action when required. Problem is, then people fall there and don't go to Kaivalya. How? Because the selfish mind takes over suddenly. And then what happens? People gather because they see that this guy has some capacity. And soon then it becomes a demonstration. And the demonstrations continue and you're caught. And it's like you're traveling in a train from, let us say, I don't know any places here, and a train from Frankfurt to Freiburg, let's say. You're on your way to the Black Forest, you're traveling. On the way, the train stops for a few minutes at some station. It's so beautiful. And the shops have lovely things outside. So you get down. I say, this is nice, I must take this. And you're so caught up in the station that the train is gone. The train has reached Kaivalya in Freiburg. I'm stuck in the middle of the station because I got caught up in these things. So that is the chapter where the yogi has to be very careful. He has to steer clear of it and use such capacities only in emergencies where required and not show it to people and attract them. Sometimes great yogis help people with this, but not everyday affair. Suppose tomorrow I start doing such things, there will be a long queue of people coming to me because it becomes a fascination. Nobody wants moksha or kaivalya. This is what people love. So one has to be careful, watch, and then go to the Kaivalya Pada, which is freedom. Nirvikalpa Samadhi. So these are these sections. We roughly discussed the Samadhi Pada. Now comes the Sadhana Pada, which interests us more, practice. How do we go about making the mind clear of all distractions and touch the Atman? Well, let me quote the first line of the Sadhana Pada, as Patanjali says in the Yoga Sutra. Tapas, Swadhyaya, Ishwara Pranidhanani, Kriya Yoga. Patanjali himself, in the first line of the practice called Sadhana Pada, calls his yoga Kriya Yoga. Tapas, Swadhyaya, Ishwara Pranidhanani, Kriya Yoga. This is how he says. Of course, Patanjali's yoga is the Ashtanga yoga, the yoga of 8 limbs, 8 parts. But nowhere in the Yoga Sutras does Patanjali himself call it Ashtanga yoga. He calls it Kriya Yoga. So how does he define Kriya Yoga? The practice. Of course, he doesn't go into the details, but how does he decide? How does he describe? One starts with tapas. Tapas Swadhyaya. Ishwara Pranidhanani Kriya Yoga. So tapas. What is tapas? Normally people say he did tapasya. Now I told you in Kumbh Mela one guy is standing with his hand up. Or there are people who dig a hole and go into it, only the head is out. Austerities. Tapasya. There are others whose head is inside and all the body is up. None of them will take you towards the Atman. What does tapasya mean here? In those days, you will hear stories about some people who went and stood in the water up to the neck with their hands raised and they're holding for many days so that they could get a glance of the deity. It doesn't work now. Puranas have divided the stages of this world, different periods. This is Kali Yuga. In this Kali Yuga, all these tricks do not work. And you cannot do it. How many days will you stand in the water up to the neck like this? You'll probably get pneumonia. So all this doesn't work in Kali Yuga. So what is tapasya in Kali Yuga? What does it mean? According to Patanjali, okay, is the first step in yoga, practice of yoga, tapasya. Okay, agreed. Tapasya, the meaning translated into English would mean austerities. AUS, austerities. Now, what is the austerity that described? The word tapasya comes from the Sanskrit root tap. Tap means heat. Heat. Now, tapasya means generation of heat. So what does it mean here? A couple of things. One, most human beings, most of beings are moving in one direction. They think joy and happiness is outside. The yogi thinks it is inside. He is moving in the opposite direction. Right? Everybody is going along with the stream, and one guy stands up and says, I want to swim against the stream, the yogi. So there is opposing forces, the one taking this way and the one wanting to come back. So between the two, there is friction. It's not so easy. There is They both meet and clash. Clashing generates friction. Friction generates heat. This is the heat. It's not physical heat. So tapasya is the heat generated in the mind that now I can't sit frozen, I need to move, and I have to move in the opposite direction. One. Second, when you practice, since he has said it is Kriya Yoga, when you practice, your body heats up. Also, you go deep, you find the heat going up. Like the great yogi Milarepa, who lived in the Himalayas, wearing cotton cloth. Well, he was experimenting in sending the heat to the outside body, but the inner heat is also generated. That heat is tapasya. This is called tapasya, austerity, which means you are creating the heat of changing the direction. Also rubbing together of the Ida and the Pingala. This heat generated is tapasya, not standing in the with one hand up or in the river with like that. So, then the next word, Swadhyaya, definition. Swadhyaya means self-study. Swadhyaya. Swa, self. Self-study is Swadhyaya. Adhyaya means study. Which means the yogi does not believe in being spoon-fed. Well, you have to learn something from the text, but in daily life, you have to study it yourself. A scripture is taught, but after that you have to study it. If the teacher teaches you, it's not enough. You have to, a lot of stress is laid on self-study and not just spoon feeding. Because then the yogi then understands what is going on. That is one meaning of the word Swadhyaya. The other meaning is Swa Adhyaya, studying the self. So when you say studying the self, it doesn't mean sitting down and saying, oh, my self is the blissful Atman. No, you don't know at the moment. You might be imagining it's the blissful Atman. It may not be, who knows. So Swadhyaya means studying yourself as you are now. If I don't study myself as I am now, how I react with people, how in contact with the world my mind works, how truthful am I, how false am I, how pretentious am I, how plain am I, how I can hide my feelings and yet keep smiling, then I am doubled, right? So I have to study my own mind to see how I am. And how do you study the mind? Only in communion with the outside world. You cannot do it in a cave. Swadhyaya. Swadhyaya, studying yourself. Nobody is going to help you. You have to study it yourself. How can somebody know how you are? You have to study it. If you study yourself in Swadhyaya, then you will be able to make the necessary changes. Otherwise, I can myself hypnotize myself into thinking that I am great and remain with it, right? But I have to lay bare, spread it out, open it and see face to face. This is Swadhyaya. Required. Otherwise, I can't make corrections if I don't. Right? I can say, oh, I am the Supreme Brahman, but when I come out and somebody kicks me, I am no Supreme Brahman, you take the stick. So in day-to-day life, only you can realize your own self. And this study is Swadhyaya. These are the things which people do not want to study in yoga because it is unpleasant. The reality. We like to live in dreams. So, Swadhyaya. So, what is the first? Tapasya. Then, Swadhyaya. The third, Ishwara Pranidhanani. Now, why does he bring Ishwara into this? Ishwara means God. Generally, Ishwara means God. Now, you must understand that 60 to 70% of Yoga Darshana has come from Sankhya. Now, the pure Sankhya philosopher of Kapila does not recognize a deity. There is no such deity for them. If you ask how did the world come about? Through chemical combination. How? Through the change of atoms. 2000 years ago. What some people are saying today. Okay. So there is no, which means there is no creator God for them. Who's sitting in a workshop, making a human being, putting the screws, and then throwing him down. And he doesn't behave, kicking him in the butt. There is no such Ishwara in Sankhya. Everything happens through natural, innate intelligence, like the tree growing from the seed and so on. So, but, so what is Ishwara according to the Sankhyas? It's a primordial, omnipresent, omnipotent existence, which is the reservoir of all wisdom from the beginning, uncreated. This is Ishwara, according. And you cannot contact the Ishwara or do anything of the kind. It's the essence of the primordial beginning of everything before everything became differentiated. It's also the primordial reservoir of all wisdom. And no Sankhya will want to meditate on the Ishvara because you have to meditate on your own self and find out. Patanjali made a little difference from Sankhya by saying, yes, that Ishvara of the Sankhyas, which is the primordial repository of all the wisdom, omniscient, also is human, meaning conscious, not a material, and therefore you can surrender to it. Because our brains are so limited, you can say, with my limited brain, I can only go this far. Therefore, I surrender to the repository of all wisdom, that my mind be cleared, and I move forward on this path. This is called Ishwara Pranidhanani, meaning surrendering to the Ishvara, calling upon the repository of all wisdom from primordial times, the omnipresent, omnipotent, to help me move forward to attain the goal. This is Ishwara Pranidhana. Pranidhanani means also. Ani means also. Ishwara Pranidhana. When all these things come together, it becomes Kriya Yoga. Kriya Yoga. So this is the first sentence of the Sadhana Pada. Tapasya, Swadhyaya, Ishwara Pranidhana, Kriya Yoga. Right. Now, the practice part with the Sadhana Pada is also called Ashtanga Yoga. The commentators have called it Ashtanga Yoga because it has 8 parts, basically. 8 parts. It starts with Yama Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, and Samadhi. Samadhi is where we are going, right? Which we discussed first. So, Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi. But I would say they should have called it Saptanga Yoga, yoga of 7 parts, because Samadhi is a culmination, it's not a part. You see, somehow that's how it's popularly known. Sapta means 7. Ashta is 8. Ashtanga. So Samadhi is the last. Now we should start, a practicing yogi who is studying should start with Yama Niyamas first. What are Yama Niyamas? Rules and regulations to be followed by the yogi. They have been enumerated. It will be interesting to know that the first yama or law or rule for the yogi to follow is Ahimsa, non-violence. Which means it's not just not being violent, the attitude of not having enmity to anything. Being kind, not having any, not in the mind, even in the mind thinking of causing harm to others or injury to others. This is the beginning of the Yama Niyama. Otherwise, however much you pull your breath in and out, one can't move forward. Yesterday I told you about the great Viva Saint Kabir Das. He said something very interesting. He said, he's talking about the yogis who do pranayam. He also did, of course. But what he said was, shall I quote in Hindi? Then translate. He said, Ja dhad prem na sanchare, so dhad jaan smashan, jaise khal luhar ki saans let bin pran. He said, you know, the blacksmiths in India, we don't see it here in the West. When they want to heat the iron and make it red hot to work on it, it needs air, constant air. So they have bellows, operated by hand. Big skin bellows which they push like, the air goes there. They call the bellows, B-E-L-L-O-W-S, bellows. So he said, the heart that does not have love, affection for others, it's such a being, such a person is living. He is breathing, but he is no different from the bellows of the blacksmith which have no life. He went to the extent of saying that such a mind is like the crematorium where dead bodies are burnt. Smashan means a crematorium where dead bodies are burned. He said a mind without, actually he was making fun of yogis who sit and breathe without changing their hearts. He said, if the heart is not kind, then you're equal to the bellows of a black. It has no life, but it also blows. So Yama Niyama, the first thing that occurs is Ahimsa. Not to have violent thoughts towards anybody, to be peaceful, to be kind, to practice being kind. Another, if you actually need to understand what Yama Niyamas are, they are rules and regulations to bring about some moderation in your life. The key word is neither too much nor too little. Oh, Krishna said that yesterday in the Abhyasa Yoga. This yoga is not for him who eats too much or eats too little, sleeps too much or sleeps too little, and so on. So the best rules and regulation that the yogi has to follow is moderation in everything. Moderation in entertainment, moderation in eating. If that one can hold on to, then we have almost practiced all the Yama Niyamas. Plus, kindness and not having violent thoughts about others, not having. These are not easy, but through practice they can be reached. These are the Yama Niyamas. Then, of course, Soucha, one of the rules, cleanliness. It's not only external cleanliness, it's also to keep the mind clean. Not think bad thoughts about others, to keep it clean. This is also important. Sometimes living in the Himalayas, in the snows, some yogis don't even get water to have a bath. They rub ice, they'll die in 2 days. So, it's not only that, but where required, it's good to keep the body also clean. So the body and the mind, Soucha, clean, and simple living. Because when you have too many things, your mind cannot settle down or concentrate, it's moving. So not to have too many things, to lead a simple life. Also, to eat food also which doesn't cause injury to other living beings, as much as possible. I know Eskimos don't get anything to eat, so they eat whatever, that's different. You should also be intelligent that I have to survive. But in general, kindness, compassion, the moderation, cleanliness, if all these put together, then you also have Yama Niyamas. The yogis are also want to be careful about not accepting gifts. But this will not work in this world. This world works on gifts. All your media is full of that. Freedom. When you get a sale in a shop, 50% less, it's also a gift, right? You know how many people go? They don't know that the guy who is selling has already calculated and put it on the price. Anyway, so as the yogi begins to practice Sadhana Pada, these are the steps that he has to take. Bit by bit, little by little. Nobody becomes a yogi in 1 or 2 days. It takes time. Patience also. Patience. Okay. Then, Yama Niyama. The next is asana. Now, in the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, there's only one reference to asanas, only one sentence. It says, Sthira Sukham Asanam, a posture in which you are comfortable for a length of time is your asana. Beyond that, he does not discuss asanas. But asana has been used, and therefore in the yogic other textbooks which we have, like the Yoga Pradipika and so on, there's a full description of asanas. And the asanas are good for you. Even if you don't want to become a yogi, great, you reach Samadhi, asanas are very good. They keep the body supple, they keep the body healthy, therefore the mind also becomes healthy. What in yoga we are mainly interested is the mind, but when the body and the mind are linked together, they are not separate. Like, how can you have a calm mind when your heart is thumping? You cannot. So, there are ways by which this body, which is so intimately linked to the mind, can be conditioned enough to make the mind quiet. And nobody does yoga for bodybuilding. We may not see any yoga for bodybuilding. It keeps you supple, it keeps your muscles supple, it keeps you active, it keeps you strong, but it doesn't build them into shapes. Asana is also physical postures, but they are to do with the mind, because all the asanas deal with the endocrine glands. You know the endocrine glands? What is the endocrine system? Starting from the pituitary down, the body has many glands which are ductless, which have no ducts, but they can always inject a little bit of hormone into the bloodstream. Right? These are the endocrine glands: thyroid, pituitary, pineal. These are all endocrine glands, sacral. How in the yoga postures, it is possible to activate the endocrine system so that your mind becomes balanced. So, which is why in yoga there are postures where you stand on your head, because this is the part which generally does not receive much circulation of blood. Because we are always like this. Sometimes you have to bend. Some people say, I don't want to bend to anybody. I said, okay, no problem. But go into your room, shut the door when nobody is there, bend a few times. It's good for you. You know why? Your circulation in the head will increase and your brain will work better and your mind will also become calm. So asanas are made in such a way that they create the ideal situation for a person to be healthy, and when meditating, not to be distracted. Now there are many postures in asana, we will not go into that, but when one does kriya, one does what is called as the Mahamudra, which is the asana part of your practice. In Mahamudra, you find that every muscle of your body is strained and then relaxed. The theory of yoga is that when a part of your muscle is strained and then released, energy flows into it. This is why asanas are used. But for meditation, the asanas are the sitting postures, folded legs for meditation of all kinds, from Sukhasana to Siddhasana to Swastikasana to Padmasana. They lock the different parts here so that all the movement is up above. And that's why many yogis are advised not to sit and hang their heads down and eat, or stand and eat, because then the circulation is all in this area. We need here. When you do this, circulation here is locked, a bit more circulation in the digestive system. It works better. Standing and eating is not a good idea. Sit before you eat, but fast food you have to stand and eat. So, asanas. I am not going into details, I am just describing Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. First I described the definition, then we came to what it means, and then the 8 angas, the 8 parts. So we have now come up to asana. Now there is pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana and samadhi, which we can keep for another session from now or later, whenever. But I want to finish this Yoga Sutras roughly before I leave. You can't leave it halfway up like